Greetings, I'm Marc Morial. I'm privileged and proud to serve as the 8th president of the National Urban League, the nation's largest historic civil rights and urban advocacy organization. And as the 8th president, I stand on the shoulders of giants. Whitney M. Young, who served alongside of Dr. King as a part of the Big Six, led the National Urban League in the 1960s. Vernon Jordan, the legendary Washington lawyer and power broker, led the National Urban League in the 1970s. I stand on their shoulders on the cusp of this year of tremendous upheaval, chaos, and change. The year 2020, which we will remember as a year that has brought us great tragedy, and I believe at the end, great triumph. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. But before doing so, let me thank Lisa Mensah and the OFN network of CDFIs, community-based organizations, leaders, partners, private sector, financial services firms, and everyone who's been a part of this very important discussion about justice and how it must be a guiding and operating principle in 21st century America. I want to thank you for your work. I want to thank you for your commitment, but I am going to challenge you to do much more than you've done already. The work we've done already is not enough. It is inadequate. And you heard many presentations about the racial wealth gap, about the gap of income inequality. And you may have heard what is the status of the American dream, the American promise of economic opportunity for all. This generation, your generation, and my generation must not embrace a business as usual approach to the stubborn and persistent issues that we face when it comes to the American economy. I believe it's tragic that this nation's economy has tripled in size since 1990. Tripled in size since 1990, and almost achieved the milestone of being a $20 trillion GDP economy. Unheard of, unimaginable in humankind, in human history, and if we forecast 30 to 40 years ago. But while all of that incredible energy, that economic output was being created, it was leaving many, many Americans behind. Not just the poor and the extremely poor, not just the working class, but middle-class Americans. Indeed, some 75 to 80% of Americans over that period have seen their earnings and their income not keep pace with the pace of inflation. This is a fundamental challenge for 21st century capitalism and the free enterprise system. And it's not time for false debates about the free enterprise system. It's not time for false debates about capitalism. It's time to reform capitalism. It's time to forcibly reshape our mixed market economy so that economic opportunity and the true concept of a rising tide lifting all boats is a true reality. Now, we've had this tragedy of this year. You know it, it's COVID. You know it's the economic downturn that has occurred and in many respects was necessary to save lives and respond to COVID. You understand it as the George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter moment, which has been a loud wake-up call for many institutions in American life. You know the pain the families fearing evictions and foreclosures, the small businesses that have closed down. Indeed, 50% of Black small businesses, it is predicted, will not make it through this recession. You know that great tragedy. But let me be candid and let me be frank. The election provides a new opportunity. A Biden White House could set and will set a wholly new tone. All caps tweets, the constant needling of partisan divisions will go away. So will self-dealing, habitual lying, and the use of government departments to pursue personal vendettas. This is an opportunity for this great nation not to return to normal, but to create a new and different normal to guide us through the 21st century. Central in my mind, and I think you share this, central in my mind is the notion that justice requires a true commitment to economic opportunity, economic empowerment, and economic justice. And when it comes to the very important work of participatory free enterprise systems, a free enterprise system in this country where all have an opportunity to not only be consumers, but an opportunity to be producers of goods and services. There's great work that needs to be done. Business leaders in financial services and in technology. Now is not the time for self-congratulatory moments. But this is not also the time, I should say, for a moment of self-indictment. It is a moment for a refreshed and renewed commitment to do things differently. Each one must look at their boardroom, add racial diversity immediately. Each must look at their operating committees, their executive committees. Do you have the right advisors? Are they diverse enough? Do you have Black and Latinx people around the table to be able to help inform your decision-making in an increasingly diverse America? Does your company have a true plan to increase diversity in hiring, diversity in procurement, diversity in philanthropy? Are you embracing of the command of the Business Roundtable to move us to what I think is necessary and needed, and that is a vision of stakeholder capitalism? The private sector has so much ability. But when we speak about institutional racism in America, people say, what does that mean? It means that racism exists within the institutions, within the private sector, within the government, within higher education, within media, within the power institutions of government. But because it exists today, doesn't mean it should exist 20 years from now. It means that we need to begin this very important journey. So let me offer, and I know I'm the person who's batting last in this wonderful conversation you all have had, a few thoughts about the issue of capital formation for African-American businesses and businesses owned by people of Latinx, from Latinx communities and others, Asian and Native and women. Let me talk a little bit about that. The creation of community development financial institutions was an innovation of many years ago. I think it was a valuable tool, and I still think it is a worthwhile tool. And I think the sector should grow and it should expand and it should develop. But it would be a mistake if we believed that to solve the problems of the racial wealth gap, to solve the problems of capital formation, that we have to limit ourselves in the 21st century to 2020 tools, or rather to 20th century tools. We need new thinking. When I think of CDFIs, for example, how can we create a mechanism where the cost of capital that CDFIs have to lend and operate is lower and more widely available? How can we increase, this is essential, the number of minority-led and minority-serving CDFIs? Can we revisit the notion of SBICs and MESBICs and look for a 21st century mechanism, because we need more than one tool. We need more than CDFIs. We need multiple tools. Can we revisit and see if we can reshape some of those ideas? Can we take a program like the Opportunity Zone program, great in concept, but I think deemed to be ineffectual because it lacks guardrails, it lacks specificity, and therefore it is subject to it's ripe for abuse, for people to use it and leave no benefits behind for the community. Can we do those things? Can we recognize that in this environment, racial intentionality about capital formation is necessary? We need policies that are going to be specific with respect to businesses owned by people of color, because they've been historically locked out and left out. And all of the work that's been done over the last 50 years has yielded benefits, but not fast enough, not far enough, and not deep enough. Let us put our caps of policy innovation. Let's put our caps of financial innovation. Let's put those caps on and not be afraid to think anew. This is a new century. This is a new millennium. We've been through a difficult first 20 years. Let's not be wedded to yesterday's tool. American history teaches us, whether it was the years of Franklin Roosevelt or the years of Dwight Eisenhower, who built the interstate system, or the years of Lyndon Johnson, who started the war on poverty, or Bill Clinton, who gave us empowerment zones. And I could continue to go on, or Barack Obama, who gave us the Affordable Care Act. Every generation must innovate. Now we must innovate when it comes to confronting the racial wealth gap and the racial earnings gap and the racial income gap and the broader issues of economic equality in this nation. I hope you'll commit to that. And I hope you'll realize that it's not going to be, we don't need, well, it's the private sector. No, it's the government. No, it is the private sector plus the government plus the nonprofit sector. Let's fire the politics of subtraction and division and embrace the politics of multiplication and addition. This is what happens at the local level. People sometimes in Washington, I call it beltway blindness. They get blinded by red shirts and blue shirts. They get blinded by where people sit, this sector or that sector. Sometimes at the local level, people roll up their sleeves. They know each other by their first names. They may be of different walks, but they may traverse together in the same places. We have to build new approaches to confronting the racial wealth gap. And central to that is capital formation for Black and Brown-owned businesses. Let me also offer this. When I say Black and Brown businesses, I mean small businesses, but not just small businesses. I want to see us build Black businesses of scale. The largest Black businesses in the nation, in the nation may barely meet, the largest one may barely meet the threshold for being in the Fortune 500. Can we set a goal in 10 years to have 10 African-American owned and 10 Latinx owned businesses on the Fortune 500 list? Can we set goals to create businesses of scale and strong infrastructure to support smaller businesses too? This is broader than small businesses, but it is about small businesses. Wealth is built by what John D. Rockefeller did, what Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates are doing, to name some of the better known families of industrialists. Wealth is built by building scale, and the scale may not have to be at that level, but we have to help, we have to nurture, and all of the research shows that closing the racial wealth gap and the income gap means an expansion of GDP. Let me say that again. Closing the racial wealth gap means an expansion of GDP. That's an important thing. We have to learn, and we have to train our muscle memories and our quote unquote debate skills and our quote rationale to understand how to make the very crucial economic case, a social justice case, and an economic case for this very, very important work. I know Lisa Mensah is a passionate leader, a gracious fighter, a happy warrior, and can build the types of, if you will, networks and bridges to pull us all together in order to do this. My family on my mother's side were enslaved on the Whitney Plantation in the early 1800s. That plantation is now a slavery museum, a museum in honor of enslaved people in St. John the Baptist Parish in Louisiana. But when they were freed by the Emancipation Proclamation in the 1860s, several members of the family became business owners. They moved to New Orleans in the early 1900s. My grandfather created an insurance company and a savings and loan. Another branch of the family got into the funeral home business, and remain in that business today. Another branch created a florist. Another branch created a hair products company. There were two who created neighborhood grocery stores. They were entrepreneurs by necessity. What it taught me and what it burned into my thinking and soul is that the entrepreneurial talent in Black America, I think the same holds true for the Latinx community, is as strong, as talented, and as great as any entrepreneurial talent. If they could build these businesses without access to bank capital, without access to venture capital, and they could build business that didn't make them super wealthy, but which gave them a life and something to pass on to the next generation. I know that this highly educated, this highly motivated, this highly talented group of young people that want to be self-employed and want to be entrepreneurs have everything that it takes to build another Amazon, another Microsoft, to use those as examples, to build businesses of great scale that employ people and change people's lives. So let it be our call to action. Let it be our cause. Let us keep our eyes on the prize, but let us not treat this time as a moment. Let's treat it as the beginning of a new movement. And let us make a big difference Not an incremental difference, but a big difference. Thank you for listening to me today. And on behalf of the National Urban League, I want to thank all of you who support us in many, many ways. Our CDFI, we are building a new action plan for 2021 for our CDFI. For those of you who don't know, we have a network of entrepreneurship centers. It's the largest privately funded network of business assistance centers that serve African-American businesses anywhere in the nation. No one does it better. No one serves more. We've got 14,000 businesses we serve each year. Come talk to us. Come see us. We want to work with you. Thank you so much. Have a great day.